Hi, my name is Bobbie Santiago, and I'm your volunteer group manager here at Valerie's house. And I'm here to talk about our next activity called Blackout Poetry and Grief Poems. So, this is going to look a little bit different per age group. So, first, we're going to focus on the older kids. So, the discussion for both groups is going to be what is grief? What does grief feels like? And things like that. So, you're going to go around and have a discussion with the kids about what grief is, what it looks like, what it feels like, what they identify it with, and things like that. After you have the discussion about what that grief is, we're then going to talk about poetry. What is poetry? You can talk about how raps can sometimes be poetry, that poetry is used in music, sometimes with nursery rhymes and books and songs and things like that. So really get the kids to open up their minds about how creative poetry can be. And also remember that poetry is what they feel. It can only make sense to them, and that's okay. It doesn't have to make sense to everybody else. It's their poetry, the words they identify with. So after you have those discussions, then we're going to move on to the actual activity, which is going to involve some books. So for the older kids, they're going to be able to select any book that they want, which will have a large stack of different variety of books. From there, they're going to pick a book out, and the best place to do is just go to a random page and look at some of the words that maybe stand out for you. If no words stand out on that page, go to the next page, and so on and so on. You really want to make sure they're not focusing on the book and the content, but more so creating something from a page in that book. So they're going to find a page of the book, and yes, they will rip it out of the book, and then they're going to use this page to come up with their blackout poetry, okay? So it's eventually going to end up looking something like this. So you'll notice they literally blacked out the words that they didn't want and left the words that they did want to use not blacked out. So you'll notice some of the words, and they are able to use the actual page that they ripped out of the book, or they can transfer it to another sheet and really highlight what that poem actually says. That was a poem they created from a page in the book using blackout poetry. So after they create their poem, allow the kids to share if they want to. Also remind them if it doesn't make sense to anybody else, that is okay. Allow them to share their poems, allow them to decorate it if they want, and I'll remind them that this is their poem about their grief and their feelings. So with the older kids, that part is done. So once you're with the younger kids, you're going to really break it down to what poetry is. Maybe focus on some nursery rhymes, some songs that they may be familiar with. And then each kid is going to get a blank handout. So we are actually going to dive in a little bit more about what grief looks like, sounds like, feels like. If it was a color, what would it be? And things like that. So to break it down for the younger kids so they can better understand what poetry actually is. So eventually, it's going to look something like this. So each kid will come up with those words that describe their grief, what it looks like, what it sounds like, if it were a color, and if it were an animal. Allow them time to get creative and really talk about and discuss what they drew and what they feel it looks like. And then on the other side, they have the option to draw an even bigger picture of what their grief looks like. And in this one, you'll see it looks like a roller coaster. There's some red dots. We may not know what that means, and we can ask the kids to explain what that means if they want. But remember, this is what they feel their grief looks like. And again, this is for the younger kids. And they also have the option of doing a group one. So once everybody has done their individual one, they can collectively decide what words they want to put on their group poem. So what do they decide their grief is? What do they decide their grief looks like? Sounds like, wings and colors, and animals. And again, this could be their group poem. And this is just an option if you guys have extra time at the end. So again, this activity is called Blackout Poetry and Grief Poems, and I'm your volunteer group manager here at Valerie's house. Thank you.